Howdy everyone, welcome back to Cool Stuff, etc. My name is Riley, and today in Michigan it is cloudy, windy, and cold as hell. So what better to do than to shoot a video talking about some books. With the forthcoming new year, I thought it'd be appropriate to talk about books that I am planning to read in the new year. This isn't an exhaustive list, but I feel like this is an appropriate amount of books for my reading pace. So yeah, I've kind of grouped them into different categories. So, we have the manga, we have the horror novels, we have the sci-fi and fantasy, etc., etc. So we'll talk a little bit about all those things, and maybe you'll find some good recommendations. Maybe you have read some of these books before. I don't know. But, I love to have discussions with people, so if you feel like any of this inspires something, like a comment or whatever, just, leave one, and I always reply to them. So, but yeah, without further ado, let's get started. And why don't we start with, let's start with this one, because this one book, this is the only book that I have in, the miscellaneous, general fiction. I don't know, it's not really sci-fi, as far as I know. It's not really fantasy or anything like that, but it is magical realism, I guess. So it's Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami, and this will be my second book by Murakami when I read it, of course. And I'm not really 100% sure what it's about, but I know this is his most popular, or one of his most popular works. I just know that I really loved Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World. That was a great book. But yeah, this seems like it'll be good, and I almost bought the really long book he wrote, 1Q84, and I decided, no, I've read enough long books this year. I'll take a break with some shorter books. So yeah, excited to read this one and read more about Murakami, or read more of his work, I should say. So Norwegian Wood. All right, now we'll move into some manga. Sorry, one of these books is stupid heavy. 20th Century Boys. This is a manga series that I started in the past couple months, and it is mind-blowingly cool. The premise is that, I think maybe I've talked about this before. The premise is that there is a group of adults who, when they were children, played together in a secret base and imagined this team of, or a group of villains that had a plot to destroy the world, and they outlined what they would do. And then as they became adults, there seems to be some sort of cult that is following this plan to a T, and it's a mystery that they're trying to solve, and there's some action, and there's a lot of comedy. It's a quite funny manga. And yeah, this is volume 3 of the Perfect Editions. I believe there's 11 of these, plus an epilogue of sorts called 21st Century Boys. And I mean, I have no idea where this is going to go. The first 2 volumes are awesome, but this series could go literally anywhere at this point, which is one of the best things about it. So yeah, this is 20th Century Boys by Naoki Urasawa. I know he's a very well-respected mangaka. So yeah, I recommend this to everybody. This isn't just a great manga, but this is just a great series, a mystery or thriller in general. This is awesome. So yeah, definitely check that out. And then Hellboy Omnibus Volume 4. Hellboy is a series that I watched the movies when I was younger and stuff, but I hadn't read any of the original source material until probably this year, maybe end of last year. Can't quite remember, but this will be the last omnibus, excluding the complete short stories volume 2, which I have not read. I think in a previous video I might have said that I own it and have read it, but I did not. I was lying. Accidentally, not purposefully. But yeah, this will be the last mainline Hellboy that I have to read, and then from there I would love to read the BPRD stuff and the Abe Sapien stuff and some of the other Hellboy universe characters and that kind of stuff, because this stuff is awesome, so good. Yeah, really excited. This is a very short one, or thinner one, I think. definitely thinner than volume 3. So I'm like, you know, I feel like I can bust this out in a couple days. So yeah, that's Hellboy. A couple mangas that I do not have physically that I am reading and will continue to read. One Punch Man. I think everybody knows what that is. I don't really need to talk much about it, but it's great. The art is beautiful. And then my friend Chevy has been loaning me the Vinland Saga series. I should say, I'm almost finished with volume 2. And then I assume he will loan me volume 3. That's the plan. But that's a great sign-in. I really recommend it. And it kind of segues quite well into this manga, Berserk, volume 8. This is volume 8. Where is it at? Volume 8. So I've read 7 up to this point, and it's been quite a hiatus for me between 7 and 8, which are normally when I finish these volumes, I order the next one as soon as possible because they're quite expensive, and read it pretty ravenously. But I waited a long time on this one, and there's no particular reason except that maybe it doesn't fit on the top shelf of my bookshelf. With the other 7, I would have to go to the next shelf down, or I'd have to like put it on top, like laying down or whatever. So, but yeah, this is volume 8 of, I believe there's going to be 13 or 14, depending on how long the series goes for. But at the time of this recording, I believe there's 11 or 12. Maybe not that many, but I believe there's 11 or 12 at least. But yeah, Berserk is a wonderful, super, super beautifully illustrated, and awesome seinen manga. Kind of a revenge story, which is why I related it to Vinland Saga. But there's even though there's a lot of blood and guts and a lot of other like graphic depictions of assault and whatnot, there's a really strong emotional core, which is to the characters and to the story, which is to me the driving force of this series. This series would be nothing without the characters. If Guts was any different, if Casca was any different, if Griffith or Farnus was any different, then it would just like it wouldn't be a masterpiece. And so yeah, I'm really excited to continue this. I wonder if I will be able to finish it all the way through by the end of next year, and I feel confidently that I can, as long as I have the funds to purchase these $40 volumes. But yeah, that's Berserk Deluxe Edition, Volume 8. Ugh. Okay, that's all of the graphic novels and manga, just kind of sorting through what I got. Okay, let's move into horror. I only have 2. The first is Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. If you're not familiar, this is the Hannibal Lecter book series that, you know, obviously inspired the movies. And yeah, I'm really glad I have all 3 of them. You know, Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, and then I almost what they were called. Is it just called Hannibal? I think it's just called Hannibal. There's no list. It's whatever. I have all 3. And I've been looking for them for a long time, cheap. Of course, I could just buy them full price, but I got this really cheap at my local used bookstore. And yeah, I don't know, just I've always really liked the story. I've only ever seen Silence of the Lambs. I haven't seen the other 2 films. So I don't really know the origins. I really only know the middle part. So I figured, why not read it, and then I'll watch the movies and see what I think. But yeah, this is a character that I'm really interested in, and a series that I'm really interested in. So I'm jumping on it since I just got it a month or 2 ago. So, excuse me. This is Red Dragon, the Hannibal Lecter series. The other horror novel that I have is Necroscope by Brian Lumley. This is the first in a long-running series. There's 5 in the mainline series of the Necroscope series. Then there's a bunch of other spin-offs and stuff featuring other characters. But essentially, this is about a character. His name is Harry Keogh, but he goes by Necroscope, and he's some sort of vampire hunter. And I don't know, just something about the cover caught my eye. I think I saw some other booktuber talking about it. And yeah, it just seemed like a really interesting sort of horror paperback that I'm interested in. So again, don't know too much about it, but really want to read it. And so I kind of bumped it up the list a little bit. So it's kind of higher up there for me. I want to get the series started and see if I like it or not. So that's Necroscope. Let's see. Before we jump into the sci-fi and fantasy, which is by far the biggest stack, I think I'll just I'll get the boring nonfiction political books out of the way. So we'll start with this one. This is The Origin of Capitalism by Ellen Meeskins Wood. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that entirely correctly. But as the title would suggest, this is a history of the origin of capitalism. It is published by Verso Books, which I have quite a few Verso books. They're a leftist publishing house, and they do good work. And this is, I want to read more nonfiction. I read way too much fiction, and this is under 200 pages, so this is why I picked it for this year, because I work through these books especially slowly. So I'm very excited, and I will have more to say when I read it. But it just seems like a great little summarized history of capitalism and how that thing works. Oh, capitalism. Speaking of capitalism, Economics, the User Guide by Ha-Joon Chang. I feel like I was recommended this by somebody, but I can't remember who. I don't know. But economics is something that I am not super educated about. I don't know a whole ton about it other than maybe the very basics. So I feel like this is a great place to start, as it is a user's guide. It's an introduction in a way. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I know that's kind of silly to say because I'm sure this book is quite dry. A lot of text, maybe some charts and graphs here and there. Not a lot of like exciting action or anything like that, but so Economics, the User Guide. Give it a chance. How could you not trust a face like that? Very trustworthy, sweet-looking man there. And then finally, in the nonfiction, is The Fateful Triangle, the United States, Israel, and the Palestinians, by Noam Chomsky, of course. Of the nonfiction books that I have, when I took a long break from reading, kind of around high school to early college age, and slowly I realized that I wanted to get back into reading, and I wanted to get into reading nonfiction and learning kind of about history, politics, that sort of thing. And this was actually one of the first books I bought when I was doing that. I recognized the name Noam Chomsky from some people on YouTube and stuff talking about him, and I've since read other works of his. Specifically, what have I read? Oh shit. God damn it. It's the book. It's the book about. It's the book about the U.S. and how they, in like the United Nations, they kind of are like unilaterally like dominating everyone essentially. I can't remember the name of it, and then there was another one as well that I can't remember, but it's whatever. But anyways, this is about Israel and Palestine, as you might suspect from the title. And I've started to read it on many occasions, but just never got past maybe the first 50 pages. And that's not because it's boring or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. I kind of forgot that I was reading it. I got distracted by other books. So this is probably at the top of my list for books that I want to read this next year, as I really, really feel strongly that I want to educate myself about what's happening, because it's kind of a meme. I feel like that Americans don't know what's going on over there, or over anywhere in general, as it's an American thing to be very ignorant, and I am no exception to that. But I'm trying my best to not be that way. So now we'll get into the books that help me to be ignorant to other people's problems. This is sci-fi and fantasy. So first one's a big one. I mean, you're hard pressed to know anyone nowadays that hasn't had any passing familiarity with Dune. Seen the movie, seen the new movie, even read the book possibly. But man, this is a thick ass book and very tall. The proportions of this book are quite unique. But yeah, I've never read Dune. I have seen both movies that are currently out. The new Denis Villeneuve, like part 2 of Dune, is not currently in theaters. But I've seen the new one, I've seen the old one, and so I know the story. but I feel like reading this will give me a closer look into the Dune universe and will enable me to read the sequels and stuff, which I am interested in. I know this. I've heard this is quite a dry book. I'm not really. I feel like I'm not really afraid of that. I'm not really fazed by it. I feel like I understand a lot about the world building just from the movies and stuff, so not super worried. I have friends who have read this and recommended it, so yeah, I'm gonna read this and hopefully read the whole series eventually. So that's Dune. That might be the only sci-fi. Oh no, there's one more. Okay. This is A Cavern of Black Ice by J.V. Jones. This is the first in the Sword of Shadows saga or trilogy, whatever you want to call it. The binding on this book is kind of coming off, so I'm trying to be gentle even though I just totally pulled it back to show you. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, the Sword of Shadows series. Again, I bought this used, don't know too much about it. I thought the cover was cool, the name was cool, and I was trying to, find some fantasy novels by women authors, because I don't really, in the past I should say, I haven't really read a whole bunch of fantasy by women authors, and so I wanted to remedy that. I have a couple other fantasy series by women authors that I haven't read yet, but we're going to talk about one in a second that I have read. But yeah, this just seems like a really cool sort of fantasy. Again, don't know much about it, but I have seen others on YouTube talking about J.V. Jones in their book collections and stuff, so I know she's quite well respected, so that seems promising. And then Starman by Sarah Douglas. This is the third. I'm going to sneeze. Give me a second. Ooh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, this is the third in the Wayfarer Redemption series by Australian novelist Sarah Douglas. And I think there's actually another trilogy following this that's kind of like a time jump. But regardless, this is quite a cool fantasy series. It's not like perfectly written or anything. Like, it's not Game of Thrones deep, but it's got enjoyable characters, a really cool world that I enjoy, and just I don't know, just has very cool vibes. Honestly, there's the cool world map. This is actually the top half, and the bottom half is here. But essentially, the world is what kind of drew me in. It's this world where humanity cut down all these trees. They've kind of like deforested their entire continent because long ago, like 1,000 years ago, the Forbidden lived in the forests, and so by deforesting the entire continent, they got rid of them. They kind of like ran them out of habitable environments. So, and then of course there's some sort of prophecy, and the two main characters, Faraday and Axis, are kind of caught up in it, and I won't say much because I don't want to spoil, because there's some really cool reveals and whatnot. But yeah, I really enjoyed this series. If you're looking for high fantasy that's very like intellectual or has like a very well thought out plot or whatever, like this isn't George R.R. Martin, this isn't Brandon Sanderson, this is just enjoyable kind of pulpy fantasy, and I really like it, and I'm excited to read more and to finish this trilogy, because things were definitely heating up in the previous volume. Speaking of really well thought out, complex series, Endymion. This is a no-brainer for me. I need to finish this series. This includes Endymion and Rise of Endymion. But yeah, I mean, the first Hyperion books, and even the second book too, are like two of my favorite sci-fi books ever, period. Like, those books are phenomenal. I'm unable to put into words how much I love those books. And so I have really high hopes for this book. I expect to enjoy it a lot. I know this one is going to be different because between this book and the previous book, there is a huge time jump from my understanding. So there's not like a lot of recurring characters really. So it's kind of its own thing that's kind of just built off of what came before it. But yeah, I have nothing but optimism of the highest sort for this book. So I'm really, really stoked to start the end of this series. Two more books to talk about. First up, The Last Wish. Excuse me. Which, if you can't tell, is a novel from the Witcher series. I haven't played any Witcher video games. I watched the first episode and didn't continue it of the Netflix series, but I am interested by the series. I think Geralt is a very cool character, and it just seems like a world that I want to know more about. And I also think it's cool the author is not American, comes from an Eastern European country of some sort. I believe so, at least. And I think it's Poland, actually. And yeah, so I think this is the first, I don't think this is the first book that was published, but I do believe it's the first chronologically, because I looked on Wikipedia, and also on the spine it says introducing The Witcher. Focus? Not working. I'm trying to do the makeup thing that people do. Okay. But yeah, my I guess not technically my father-in-law, but technically my father-in-law, because we're not married yet, but my father-in-law bought this mistakenly for Katrina instead of her sister, because Katie doesn't read fantasy novels really, but her sister does, and also plays the video games, and I'm sure mentioned to her dad or something. He bought the first two, so I have the first two, and I didn't give it back, even though it was not rightfully mine, but it's fine. I took it, and it's mine now. So, sorry. Okay, and then lastly is a book series that I have talked about before. This is Elric of Melniboné. This is the hardback Elric Saga Volume 1, so this collects the first 4 stories chronologically. 3 of which I own, and 2 of which I have read before. So in this book, there is Elric of Melniboné, which is the first story chronologically, followed by Fortress of the Pearl, which I own but have not read yet. Sailor on the Seas of Fate, which I have read and really love, and I've talked about before. And then the 4th book is The Weird of the White Wolf. And so I was at Barnes & Noble. I was actually shopping for Katrina for Christmas, and I saw this along with volume 2 and 3, and I was like, oh, I didn't even realize they had these hardback collections. This is really cool. And it was like, I think it was on sale a little bit, so I totally bit the bullet on it, and I'm really excited. I'm probably just going to reread the stories that I've already read because I really love them. And so there's nothing lost by doing that. So, yeah, I'm really, really excited. Ooh, it has a map. The other books do not have maps. That's cool. Yeah. And it was funny, the cashier, she was like, oh, this looks like a cool cover. And I was like, yeah, this is actually a really great fantasy book. And we talked a little about fantasy, and she gave me a recommendation. And then I I was like, yeah, bye, thanks for talking to me, whatever. And then as I was like leaving the store, I remembered, oh yeah, there's like a little bit of incest going on in this series. So didn't give a warning. Sorry about that to that nice cashier lady. But maybe she won't mind. It's not like, it's not like super gross. Like, they don't like do anything sexual, but there's some cousin fucking in this book. It's not a big deal. Actually, they don't fuck. They don't fuck. They just love each other. Yeah, I have nothing else to add. Elric of Melniboné. I'm excited to continue this series. I think it's wonderful. I have high hopes for this too. And that's everything on my TBR for now. I reserve the right to add more to it. I'm really, really trying to not buy more books until I read the books that I have. But the problem with that is that I have no impulse control. So, but yeah, this is what I'm planning to read next year. I really want to stick to it if I can. But I'm not, I know this about myself, is that I cannot put pressure on myself to do those things, or else they won't get done. So we're just going to be very casual about it. I'll read it if I get to it. If I don't get to it, that's fine. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you got some cool recommendations. If you have any recommendations for me based on my tastes, please leave them in the comments. I love getting recs. And yeah, I don't know if you enjoyed. What do you do on YouTube? They say like, comment, subscribe. You can do that if you want to. Don't really give a shit. I'm not doing this for money or anything. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one, everybody.